Two. One. Good morning. Happy Tuesday morning, and welcome to a little coffee and a conversation. I'm pleased to welcome Jacqueline Way to our Facebook Live. Yeah, coffee and a conversation. We're going to take 15, 20 minutes or so with you this morning. We promised to pop in and talk about something that both Jacqueline and I have been working on this week, and we're both pretty passionate about, and that is the journey from hopeless to hopeful and happy. And I'm just going to jump right in. And welcome, Jacqueline. We're going to talk a little bit more about 365 Give at the end of our conversation, but thank you so much for being here. And I am curious why you feel this conversation is such an important one to be had.
Well, good morning, Char. I'm so excited to be here with you today. Obviously, you and I have a long history and past right around this topic, and going from, not quite sure about your life to hopeful about your life, and ending it with happiness. Because at the end of the day, that is the most important part, is that, we all have a happy life. And that's such a big goal, I think, for everybody in their life, is how do I get to that happy place in my life? How do I go from, being filled with anxiety and stress and not having hope within our life to being very hopeful and very happy? And, the importance of that, and you and I are speaking together at a talk this weekend called We Talks. And that's the focus around this conversation this weekend, where people within their business and inspirational fields are coming together to inspire and educate people on exactly this, hopeful and happiness in their world. And I think as we all have experienced at one point or another in our lives, we all go through these journeys that are up and down, and some days are really low and some days are really high. And how do we come to that place where it's a little bit more peaceful all of the time? The highs are maybe not quite as high or still very high, but the lows are not quite as low. And I've gone through a journey with my son that has taken me to this really neat place where we know how we can create that happiness. Even if it's just once a day in our world every day, we know we can create a little bit of happiness. We can reduce our anxiety and stress. And we can give ourselves a big endorphin rush, which gets us to that place, which is a little more peaceful and a little bit more happy every day.
I love it. And one thing I love about what you're doing with the boys is that you're starting to have these conversations when they're little, when they're young, about how important, being happy is, and that it's something that you do every day. And I know, years ago, you and I would go out hiking almost on a daily basis. And part of what I'm excited about to have this opportunity to talk this weekend is just that, is to bridge that conversation about, it's not about them and us. It's not about we, the happy people, the experts. It's about, we're all coming together to talk about how crappy and hard life can be sometimes. Absolutely. And how absolutely challenging and overwhelming it can be sometimes. And what do you do? What can you do on a daily basis, even if it's small? The journey to happiness is a practice. And, one of the things that you do, every day is you've built into your practice with the boys a way to find that little piece of happiness every day, which in turn is building up your boys to be young men that know they have proactive ways that they can balance out their moods. And I don't know, I think that's absolutely incredible. I'd love for you to share a little bit more about 365 Give and what you are up to in your own practice.
Absolutely. Well, when you and I met, I was going through a very stressful time in my life. I had just learned that I was not able to have children, but one of my big hopes for my life was to become a mother. And I was very blessed a number of years ago to adopt our first son. As I always love to share that story, you were literally with me the moment I received the call, and I was told I was going to be the mother of a beautiful little baby boy. And that gift was such a blessing to me. And as a parent who was not able to have children on her own, this was such a remarkable gift for me. And as everyone at the Ministry of Children and Family Services likes to say, I won the lottery. And so I wanted to make sure, and as we went through the process and the adoption process, one of the questions they ask you is, what's your expectations for your children? And, many of us as parents, we have different dreams for our children. Some people, it's a higher education. It's becoming a doctor or a lawyer, being very successful, potentially making money in their lives. But for me, what was really important for me as a parent was to teach my children to be kind, compassionate, and loving human beings that could contribute back to the world. And I wanted to keep it simple, And so when my oldest son, Nick, turned 3, I decided I wanted to start teaching him those values as a human being. And what unfolded was so much more than I possibly could have imagined. And so on Nick's 3rd birthday, I kind of introduced this project as what I like to call it, a super fun family project together. And we were going to do one thing to give back to the world every day, to impact the world in a positive way, but so simple a 3-year-old could do it. So what we did is we sat down and we created a list. And I introduced the idea to Nick by saying, we're going to do one thing back to the planet or the environment, or we're going to give back to people. And so we created a little giving list, our first giving list, and it included things like picking up garbage. I taught Nick to recycle. We would go down to the local animal shelter and donate towels and blankets. We learned to do projects with garbage that we picked up. We make art out of straws instead of throwing them away in the garbage. Donated clothes. We did so much of our shopping as what I call ethical shopping. So we shop at the stores, and when we went to a grocery store to make purchases, we made sure that they were ethical food. It was organic, it was make sure that it was good and proper labor, and it was giving back with every time we purchased. And we found things that we could do every day for 365 days. Well, we had decided right from the very beginning that I was going to create a blog around this in hopes that just maybe we would inspire just one person to start giving more in their lives. Well, the remarkable part about this journey is that people started reading the blog and they started engaging from all over the world. They wanted to share their stories of daily giving because they were inspired by this little 3-year-old boy, Nick. And they figured if a 3-year-old can do it, I can do it. And so as this journey unfolded and our days unfolded and my blessings kept arriving and more children kept coming. And 3 little boys later, you understand as a mother and a parent the importance of teaching this to your children and continuing that tradition within your family. Because especially with boys, and if people aren't aware of this, boys are very competitive by nature. It's kind of built into their DNA, to say the least. So every day, even if it's my boys sharing something, being generous with each other, sharing their toys, no screaming, no yelling, no fighting. All of that to me is considered, and the boys, and we all call it, it's our 365 give every day because we're being compassionate and giving to each other within our family. And then we still do lots of things outside of our home. We do lots of things within our school, within their schools as well, that continually reinforces that daily giving pattern of giving back to our world. Well, the neat thing about this and how it ties into happiness, which I never knew when I started this project, is there's actually something called the science and psychology of giving. And our bodies are physically hardwired for giving. When we give, we get chemical reactions that are going on in our body all of the time. First thing that happens is we get this big endorphin rush. And it happens right in the prefrontal cortex of your brain. And this endorphin rush, and if you're a runner, it's like the runner's high. They've actually called it the helper's high. So if you can't go out and run, go out and do a little daily give, something small, and you're going to feel that same rush that you get from running or hiking or doing something very active. Mm-hmm. The other great thing that happens is your cortisol rises. Your oxytocin rises, and this is our love hormone. So if you're not feeling great, you're not feeling happy, this is going to give you that boost that's really going to make you feel that sense of like somebody's wrapped their arms around you and given you a big hug. And not only will this happen in you, but whatever you give back to, and if you choose to give back to a human versus the planet or an animal, they get that same feeling as well. So to me, it's almost a double give because not only are you starting to feel great, but the person that you've given to is also feeling this same chemical reaction in their body. But here's the part that I love the most. Your cortisol levels drop, and this is our stress hormone. So our stress levels actually drop in our body. And this is where the science comes into it, because they've actually studied our body and that physical reaction that happens in your body. So if you're feeling anxiety and stress, and we all do in our lives, I am the mother of 3 boys. It happens every morning at about 8:30 on the way to school. The best way to reduce that is to do something to give back. So, if you're walking to school with your kids or you're driving to work, instead of honking at that person or cutting them off, let them in. Make that your daily give. If you're walking to school with your kids, pick up some garbage on the way. You're going to feel your stress levels start to drop, because now you're giving back. It's not about you anymore, but you're giving back to something greater than yourself.
I love it. Yeah, I think it's so great. And so I was going to ask you, can you remind, how old is Nick now? And what, I know, and what does he have to say about this the process that he's been on? Obviously, now he's teaching the younger brothers, and, he's kind of growing into it. I'm just curious, what it looks like now in his life.
Well, I'm lucky that Nick is a really gentle little soul as it goes. I like to believe that because we started this practice so young in his life, that it just automatically becomes something that's part of him now. I get the response from his teachers at school and his camp instructors, whatever he's doing, that he is that person. He is just that automatically kind, gentle, compassionate person that will be the first person to step up and help another kid or volunteer at school to help in some way. So I'm hoping that it's just naturally become ingrained in who he is. At the age of 9, it's a really interesting time as you go into your teens as well. But we've actually 365 Give, and what we started as a blog has now become a charitable organization. We've actually turned it into an educational program, a tool for teachers that implements this daily giving practice directly into their curriculum. And what we see now is Nick is able to come with me to the schools. We take the time off school because I think this part of his education is so important, where he now volunteers his time for 365 Give. He helps me teach different educational programs to kids directly in school. He helps me with the launches. It's building his confidence. And it's really interesting because as this fleshes out, and I know we'll talk about this, but I recently did a TED Talk about this, which caused me great anxiety and stress, to say the least. But, Nick and I walked through this process together. It was a great learning exercise for him to see how difficult things can be. Nick struggles with his education. He has a really hard time with his maths and his reading. And so he sees mom struggling with anxiety and stress at times with 365 Give and initiatives that I'm trying to do. And so we start to do giving activities together, because as he knows, that's going to reduce our stress and anxiety. On days he's having a tough day going to school, in the mornings, we'll go out and we'll do a daily give first before he goes into school, so that his anxiety and stress levels around school reduce. And it's easier to then entry into school as well, where he's feeling more relaxed and more comfortable and more confident. So as this unfolds, and I see it in even his younger brothers, he has helped me teach his younger brothers, who are now just 5 and 6 years old. And we do the same thing. Whenever anybody is struggling or have a hard time, we always go back to 365 Give. We go back to the concept and philosophy, which they all understand. And they all understand that it makes us happy. So when we all need as a family that injection of happiness, we go out and give, because it ultimately always makes us happy. And it's the first thing that my kids will say: giving makes you happy.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's so brilliant that they have those pillars. They know that they can always come back to those pillars. And one of the things I think a great lesson is, for some reason we take happiness for granted. We think that it's just a given. We should be happy as humans, that it's our right, our God-given right. But in fact, happiness, it needs to be cultivated. It's like any other muscle in our body. Anything else worth having and experiencing, it has to be regularly cultivated. And I think part of what we can do this weekend for the people that we're sharing with each other and you know, as a group at We Talks, we can talk about those different ideas about how do you cultivate happiness? How do you actually proactively bring those tools into your life that you need to be a happier person and proactively work against some of the negative things that can happen if we're not being more proactive. So I know that We Talks is this Saturday coming up at the Hive in downtown Vancouver. I'm wondering if there's anything, I'm going to obviously put the ticket registration with this video, but I'm wondering if there's anything that you specifically hope to share with the people that are there that might encourage someone to come and join us on Saturday down at the Hive.
Well, I think what we all need, and Char, you just touched on this, is we all need to find ways to deal with our anxiety and our stress in our life. You know, literally the World Happiness Report, if anybody has read it or taken a look at it, you know, 220 million children and over 1 billion adults suffer from anxiety and depression and stress in their lives. It's actually a worldwide problem and issue. And what we also know is this leads to much bigger issues, and that is both adult and teen suicides across the board. It's very difficult for people to find those easy ways to deal with what's happening, not only in our lives, but in the world. I mean, we need to be serious. We got a lot going on in our world every day right now. And I always say, let's look at those 7 billion people that are in our world. If we all practiced and had daily practices, and that includes giving, and that includes exercise, and for some people it's meditation. If we all looked at those ways to incorporate these practices into our life, our world in general would be a much happier and better place. This would start to create a ripple, which then creates a tipping point in our world across the board that takes us all from anxiety and stress to happy. And that tipping point can happen, but we all need to engage. We all need to learn. We need to educate ourselves, and we need to become aware and inspired that we can do this together. It's a group activity. It's not something any one of us can do by ourselves. I definitely cannot change the world by myself. I'm clear on that. But if we all start creating these practices, these daily habits, I like to say it's just like brushing your teeth, then it will make our world together a better place.
Yeah, I certainly believe so. And I want to thank you very much for coming to have a bit of a conversation this morning in the group.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, every time we do something like this, it's an opportunity to get to know the powerful women in our collective just a little bit better, and video that we can share. Just wondering, where is the best place for people to connect with you online if they want to find out more about 365 Give?
Yeah, 2 places. If you'd like to learn about our story, I recently just did a TEDx Stanley Park talk. It's, 14 and a half minutes where you can learn basically everything there is to know about 365 Give, our story, and how it connects and empowers and impacts our world. And you can obviously just Google my name, Jacqueline Way, and TEDx, and it will come up on YouTube. And then the other way is via our website, www.365give.ca. And right there, you can connect with us, reach out to me anytime. We always love, and even on our Facebook, share your daily giving stories. We believe that when we give and we share, it creates a ripple. So start sharing your daily giving stories. Tell people what you're doing. Share it with the world. Share it on your Facebook. Tag us on it. And that will start to create the ripple. It's going to inspire other people to give in their lives as well. It's how we started. One day, one give at a time. We can all do it, and we will create the change.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jacqueline. I look forward to seeing you on Saturday.
Thanks for having me, Char. I will see you on Saturday. Can't wait to see everybody at We Talks.
Take care.
Bye.